Hello and welcome back, dear students. Today we are going to begin the first of our lectures on the endocrine system with the study of the pituitary and the adrenal glands. Now in these lectures we are going to study anatomy and physiology together each time so that we don't get too far away from the many glands that we are going to look at. This lecture is the first of 3 lectures on the endocrine system of glands that secrete hormones directly into the spaces surrounding their cells, from which the bloodstream picks up and circulates them. After distinguishing endocrine from exocrine functions and reviewing the endocrine system organs, we examine the functional differences between the endocrine and nervous systems and the basic properties of hormones. Next, we look at the most important endocrine glands, the pituitary glands and hypothalamus, and the adrenal glands. Exocrine glands, out and screening to secrete, several words, are glands that secrete into ducts, which in turn carry the secretions out of the glands and into the lumens of certain body cavities. Endocrine glands, endo means within, are glands that secrete directly into the spaces around the cells and whose products are picked up and circulated by the bloodstream. The endocrine system includes some organs that are wholly endocrine in function. These include the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid glands, adrenal and pineal gland. Endocrine organs that have other functions as well as endocrine functions include the pancreas, liver, ovaries, stomach, hypothalamus of the brain, small intestine, kidneys, testes, and placenta. There are differences between the functions controlled by the nervous system and the endocrine system together. Both systems coordinate functions of body systems in general. Both are mutually interconnected. Endocrine system. The endocrine system releases chemical messengers called hormones, which act on other organs in all parts of the body. Some hormones promote or inhibit nerve impulses, while others, for example, epinephrine and norepinephrine, may be neurotransmitters themselves. These hormones act as hormones rather than as neurotransmitter in other places. Hormones may take seconds, minutes or hours to work their effects, and their duration of action may be short or long-lived. Hormones generally regulate growth, reproduction and metabolism. Nervous system acts by the generation of nerve impulses to stimulate or inhibit effector organs. It may stimulate the release or inhibition of hormones themselves from the endocrine organs. Nerve impulses have their effect in milliseconds, in contrast to the slower endocrine system. But the effects are also short-lived. Nerve impulses primarily cause muscle contraction and the secretion of fluids by certain glands. Okay, it was introduction. After studying this chapter, you can be able to contrast the major structural classes of hormones and explain the general mechanisms of hormonal action on target cells, on target organs. Describe the location, hormones and functions of the pituitary gland. Describe the location, hormones and functions of the adrenal glands. Explain how hormones interact to produce coordinated physiological response. So what is the purpose of the endocrine system? General purpose is working with the nervous system, regulates and integrates body's metabolic activity, maintain homeostatic with hormones. What are the three major components endocrine system? First, glands, specialized cells or organs. Second, hormones, chemical secretions by glands in response to stimuli. Third, receptor, bind-specific. Molecules will change target cells. The endocrine system includes all endocrine cells. Cells are glandular and secretory. Cytokines are local chemical messengers. Hormones are chemical messengers secreted into the blood and transported to target cells. Hormones coordinate cell, tissue and organ activities on a sustained basis. They circulate in the bloodstream and bind specific receptors on or in target cells. They then modify cellular activities by altering membrane permeability, activating or inactivating key enzymes or changing genetic activity. The structure of hormones. Hormones are grouped based on chemical structure. First group is amino acid derivatives, all derived from amino acid tyrosine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, thyroid hormones and melatonin. They are amino acid hormones. Second group is peptide hormones, change of amino acids. This is the largest group, includes antidiuretic hormone, oxytocin, growth hormone, etc. Next group is lipid derivatives. There are two groups of lipid derivatives hormones. First is steroid hormones, most derived from cholesterol released by reproductive organs and adrenal cortex. They are not soluble in water, bound to proteins in blood. For example, testosterone and estrogen. And next group of lipid derivatives is eicosanoids, fatty acids. They coordinate local cellular functions and blood clotting. For example, prostaglandins. Mechanisms of hormonal action. All cell structure and function determined by proteins. Hormones alter operations of target cells, change identities, activities, locations, or quantities of structural proteins and enzymes. Sensitivity of target cell to hormone depends on specific receptors allocated either on plasma membrane or inside the cell. receptors on plasma membrane. First group, epinephrine, norepinephrine and peptide hormones are not lipid soluble, cannot diffuse through the plasma membrane, must use a receptor on outside of membrane. Effect is not direct, chain reaction. They are first messenger that activate second messengers, enzyme activator or inhibitor in cytoplasm. Action is linked by G protein and enzyme complex. Cyclic AMP second messenger system. Cyclic AMP or cyclic messengers, first messenger activates a G protein, which activates enzyme adenylate cyclase, which converts ATP to second messenger, cyclic AMP, which activate kinase enzymes inside cell, which phosphorylates another molecule, produces amplification of signal. Intracellular receptors, second group, receptors inside cytoplasm or nucleus. For thyroid and steroid hormones, lipid soluble, forms hormone receptor complex, activates or inactivates specific genes, alters rate of mRNA transcription and changes structure of function of cell. Hormone secretion and distribution. Rapidly enter blood and distributed throughout body. Freely circulating hormones are short-lived and inactivated when first, they diffuse to target cells and bind to receptors. Second, they are absorbed and broken down in liver and kidney. And third, they are broken down by enzymes in plasma or interstitial fluid. Hormones bound to transport proteins stay in circulation longer, steroid and thyroid hormones. Each hormone has an equilibrium between bound and free forms. Next question, the hypothalamus and endocrine control. Hypothalamus provides the highest level of endocrine control, coordinating the centers in hypothalamus regulate nervous and endocrine systems in three ways. First way, acts as an endocrine gland synthesizing ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and oxytocin. Second way, secretes two classes of regulatory hormones to control anterior pituitary secretions, which will control other glands. Releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. Releasing hormones, RH, they stimulate the synthesis and secretion, and inhibiting regulatory hormones, IH, prevents. Third way contains autonomic nervous system centers that control adrenal medulla through sympathetic innervation. The pituitary gland, protected by the cella turcica of the sphenoid bone, hangs from hypothalamus by infundibulum. Anterior and posterior have very different structure, and the hypothalamus secretes 9 hormones. The 7 anterior lobe hormones are thyroid stimulating hormone TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone ACTH, follicle stimulating hormone FSH, luteinizing hormone LH, prolactin PRL, growth hormone GH, and melanocyte stimulating hormone. First hormone is thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone, also called thyrotropin, released in response to thyrotropin releasing hormone from hypothalamus, triggers release of thyroid hormones from thyroid glands. It increases in thyroid hormones cause decrease in TRH and TSH secretion. Second hormone is adrenocorticotropic hormone, also called corticotropin, stimulates secretion of steroid hormones called glucocorticoids from adrenal cortex. Corticotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus triggers release of ACTH, increases in glucocorticoids feedback to inhibit ACTH and CRH secretion. The gonadotropins or sex hormones are triggered by gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH from hypothalamus. Next hormone is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone FSH promotes follicle and egg development in females, promotes sperm production in males. Luteinizing hormone induces ovulation and secretion of progestins in females, stimulates production of androgens such as testosterone in males. Next hormone is prolactin, PRL. Prolactin stimulates mammary glands development in pregnancy, and nursing stimulates production of milk. Next hormone is growth hormone. Growth hormone, also called human growth hormone, and somatotropin, stimulates cell growth and replication of all cells, but especially skeletal muscle and chondrocytes, bone. Stimulates liver to release somatomedins, which trigger and increase in amino acid uptake by cells following meal. Has multiple metabolic influences. Next hormone is melanocyte stimulating hormone. It increases activity of melanocytes in skin, darkening of skin without sun. Appears to be non-functional in adults. Is active in fetal development, very young children, pregnancy, certain diseases. There are two posterior lobe hormones in hypothalamus. Hormones diffuse down from hypothalamus axons that extend into posterior lobe, then into capillaries. These two hormones are first ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and second oxytocin. Antidiuretic hormone is also called vasopressin. It increases when body is low in water or solutes increase in blood. When solutes increase in blood, it increases. Decreases the amount of water loss in urine, stimulated by increase in extracellular fluid osmolarity or decrease in blood volume and pressure. Primary target is kidney, to decrease water loss, and triggers vasoconstriction to increase blood pressure. Next hormone of posterior lobe of hypothalamus is, or pituitary gland, is oxytocin. In women, stimulates contraction of uterine muscles during labor and delivery. Also stimulates contraction of cells surrounding milk secretory cells in mammary glands. Appears to play unclear role in sexual arousal. Our next question is adrenal glands. Adrenal glands produce hormones that adjust metabolic activities at specific sites, affecting the pattern of nutrients use, the balance of mineral ion levels, or the rate of energy consumption by active tissue. The adrenal gland, also called the suprarenal glands, yellow, pyramid shape, sits on superior border of each kidney, and there are two portions. First, adrenal cortex, outer part, and adrenal medulla, inner part. Adrenal cortex contains high levels of cholesterol and fatty acids, produces more than 24 steroid hormones called corticosteroids. Corticosteroids are essential for metabolic functions, will die, transported in plasma bound to proteins. Three zones of cortex produce three different types of corticosteroids. First, mineral corticosteroids, outer. Second, glucocorticosteroids, middle. And third, androgens, inner part. Mineral corticoids, also called MCs, they produced by outer zone, affect electrolyte balance in body fluids. First hormone of mineral corticoids is general hormone is aldosterone, major MC, is secreted in response to low plasma sodium, low BP, high plasma potassium, or presence of angiotensin II. Triggers reabsorption of sodium ions in kidney, sweat glands, salivary glands, and pancreas. Secondarily, triggers water reabsorption through osmosis. Second types of hormones are glucocorticoids. They also called GCs. They produced mostly by middle zone, affect glucose metabolism. Most important are cortisol, corticosterone, and cortisone. They are secreted in response to ACTH. Increased rates of glucosis and glycogenesis, resulting in increase in blood glucose levels, also act as anti-inflammatory hormone. Next part is the androgens, produced by inner zone in both males and females, some converted to estrogens in plasma. In normal amounts, don't affect sexual characteristics. Function remains unclear. The adrenal medulla, highly vascular, containing cells similar to sympathetic ganglia, innervated by preganglionic sympathetic fibers. Epinephrine, E, or adrenaline, is 80%. Norepinephrine, NE or noradrenaline is 20%. Triggers metabolic changes to increase availability of energy molecules. Supports and prolongs overall sympathetic system. Hormones and stress. Stress is triggered by physical injury or disease, emotional responses, anxiety or depression, environmental conditions, extreme cold or extreme heat, metabolic conditions, acute starvation. Stress triggers the General Adaptation Syndrome, GAS, also called the stress response. There are 3 stages of this response. First stage is alarm phase, fight or flight stage. The alarm phase, you see in this picture, in this slide, is an immediate response to a stress or crisis. The dominant hormone in epinephrine and its secretion is part of a generalized sympathetic activation. Next stage of stress is resistance phase. The resistance phase begins if a stress lasts longer than a few hours. Glucocorticoids are the dominant hormones of the resistant phase of this stage. And next stage is exhaustion phase. Exhaustion phase or adaptation to stress. Here there are 2 ways. Exhaustion phase, the body's lipid reserves are sufficient to maintain the resistance phase for weeks or even months. But when the resistance phase ends, homeostatic regulation breaks down and the exhaustion phase begins. Without immediate corrective actions, the ensuing failure of one or more organ systems will prove fatal. Okay, this is checkpoint for you. Bye-bye. Good luck, dear students. See you later.